and similar percentages of the budget and similar percentages of their department's cuts that they actually represented in the budget cuts. Because of the work of many of the unions, we were able to restore, as you can see here, most of the full-timers right away. And in some cases, they didn't actually happen because they were the concessions made by the unions allowed us to keep them before the layoff date of January 1st. Some of them we didn't. Our police did have layoffs. They didn't come back until almost 30 police officers retired in the month of January, and then it actually became more expensive not to bring them back because we had to backfill so many of those positions with overtime. I don't know if you can all read this, but these are some of the impacts because of these cuts. The raceway traffic detail around the casino is gone. The school resource officers, the police who actually go to the schools, were eliminated. The DARE program, very nice program, especially educating kids on the dangers of drugs, gone. The PAL unit, now PAL did not close, but the police officers assigned to the PAL, where they were working, that was eliminated. The PAL, by the way, is basically a volunteer organization, and it's still operating. Now, at some point, we'd like to help by having some of our police officers go back, but I can tell you some of the retired officers have volunteered their time since then. And many of the parents have now stepped up and volunteered their time to keep those programs going, and that's frankly what it was supposed to be in the first place. We also did reduction to all of these other units, as you can see. And again, I repeat, when people ask me, well, if you could have reduced the budget and reduced all that overtime in the first place, why didn't you do this a long time ago? We don't want to do this. This is not our intent. These units are important, and that's why we kept them there. Well, the second quarter projections came in, and we presented that to the City Council just the other day. They're continuing to go down, our revenues. And we waited until the end of January because that would include most of the retail sales during the Christmas months. The month before and the month after Christmas. Well, the numbers continued to go down. So the deficit got even bigger. Now, we didn't make a big deal out of this. We didn't announce that. And the reason was, I'll tell you in a second. But mortgage, real estate, sales, all of them went down compared to the first quarter, and it increased the gap at the end of the year, about $2 million. The reason we didn't have to make any additional cuts is twofold. One, all the retirements, mainly in the police department, eliminated a significant amount of our expenses till the end of the year on the health plan and the coverage that we had to provide in benefits. And what was projected to be the cost for providing all of these medical benefits by the insurance companies like the Empire plan came in at a lower premium than we had projected. So the combination of those two pretty much made up the increase in or the decrease in revenues projected in the second quarter. So that was a wash. We had to take no further action. But the plan is working. The reduction plan is working. It's painful, but it is working. And the end result is that we have saved, and we are projecting that by the end of the year, as of the end of January, which is 7 months into the 12-month fiscal year, it looks like we'll finish with a slight surplus. And I mean slight. $600,000, which sounds like a lot to you and me, but it's not you and me. It's a city with a $900 million budget. And believe me, $600,000 can be eaten up over the course of a few weeks if there's any kind of a real serious problem or catastrophe. So that's not something to rely on. We're not going to go spending that money just yet. Now, we have 2 more quarters left. We literally monitor overtime because that's where most of our expenses are on a daily basis. Police, fire, public works, parks, on a daily basis. The information comes in, goes directly to our finance commissioner, and he does an analysis literally every day to let us know where we're headed. Because we need to know that we have to make adjustments quickly, if we have to save the money so that we don't run in another few months and say we've now got to cut another $2 million out of our budget. And with only a few months left, the cuts go even deeper. So we're not looking to do that. We're trying to maintain the workforce that we've got now. We're looking for additional revenues. We've proposed several fee increases. Building permits is one of them, mostly for the larger projects. And we've also proposed some other fees. Now, the city council is looking those over. Those have to go through a hearing process. But we also recognize that one of the worst things we could possibly do is create all these additional fees and create all these increases, because that hurts you almost as much as anything else that would affect our budget. We're not looking to balance this by just creating all these new fees. It was proposed in New York State recently. You can hear the reaction to it. 135 new fees in New York State. That's insane. So it's a real balancing act. We need to provide police and fire and public works and parks. We need to provide all those services that we provide at a quality level, at a high level, because that's why you're here. But we have to pay for it, and we have to decide what the right balance is. And there will be a process, a public hearing process. The city council will hold public hearings, and you will have an opportunity to weigh in on it. One of the other things I've been proposing is consolidating Board of Education and City of Yonkers services. Not the department, the services. There's no reason to me that I can think of why we need 2 computer departments, why we need 2 purchasing departments, or 2 finance departments, or 2 personnel departments. That just doesn't make sense. We're a city. Even though the Board of Education is a separate entity, we're a city. And we can provide the same services for both. This is not that big a city that we can't do that. I work extremely well with the commissioner, with the superintendent of schools and the board of trustees, even though they're independent. So we can and we must do that to save money, and we can provide the same kind, if not better, backup administrative services for both the city and the Board of Education with a reduced number of people and therefore at a reduced cost. And obviously, and this is very important, and it's not going to pay dividends today, but you know, if we had done this a few years ago, it would be paying dividends today. We've got several great projects that will provide millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in revenues, such as Rich Hill, such as the downtown project, such as Cross County, such as the Alexander Street. If we don't move ahead aggressively, a few years from now, we could be back, or future councils and mayor could be back, facing the same kinds of problems that might have been avoided if we had revenue sources that we could count on a daily basis, on an annual basis, that provided millions of dollars in revenue so we can continue to pay for those services, and not on the backs of homeowners who are here now, by bringing in new taxpayers, by bringing in new businesses, by bringing in new jobs, where the income tax from those new jobs all go into our budget and offset the cost of doing business, which is the cost of providing services. Next year, we've projected, and I'll explain very quickly, that projection of $108 million deficit. That is a worst-case scenario. That is assuming no other revenue sources. That's basically assuming, and by the way, as you can see, this is how it's broken down, $58 million on the city side, 50 on the Board of Ed side, but most of the city side, $38 million worth of that deficit for the next fiscal year. $38 million is nothing more than finding another source of revenue for revenues that we've already provided this year that were only for 1 year. Because we don't have recurring revenue sources for the entire budget. So we've looked and we have found, when we sold the library, we got $20 million out of it at one time, and we brought that to the Board of Education. When Rich Hill was finally closed, we got $8 million, and that $8 million went into the budget, but that's only a one-time deal. When Yonkers Raceway was converted to casinos, we got an impact fee. The first year was $14 million. It's that 1 year. Now we have to find something to replace that. Either another one-shot, or a series of one-shots, or a revenue source that's continuing. Those revenue sources that continue with those numbers are not that available. That's where these major projects would make a difference, and in the future will. I can tell you that right now, the commissioner, with all the other commissioners of the department, the commissioner of finance and the superintendent, because I met with them only about 3 hours ago, are working on reducing those numbers already. That assumes no increase